Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. We're 2 days into Throne of Eldraine spoilers, and this set is already looking pretty cool as far as the art and the flavor of kind of what's going to be going on in this set. So with this video today, I'm going to be going over some of the spoilers that we got from yesterday and some of the ones that we got from today as well, and just kind of going over really their possibility of being played in like a constructed format, how they're going to be are in limited, and just some really cool cards that I thought were already spoiled so far. So some of the big ones, the Planeswalkers that we already have for the set. We have Garak, Cursed Huntsman. We see him in the trailer. He's kind of a dick. Those gingerbread men didn't deserve it. And I guess gingerbread woman. But he is a 6 mana Planeswalker for 5 loyalty that makes 2 wolves for his 0, and whenever they die, you put a counter on each Garak you control. Alright, loyalty counter on each Garak you control, my bad. -3, you destroy a creature, draw a card, and -6, you get an emblem with creatures you control, have +3/+3, and have trample. It's been a while since we've seen Garak. I can't exactly remember the last set that we actually saw him in, but this new Planeswalker is probably going to prove to be very powerful because there was a card called Elspeth Sun's Champion that we had in Theros Standard and throughout that time. And while I don't think this card is like on that same level, it's definitely reminiscent of that card, considering that it just makes a ton of tokens for a 0 ability. And while having 6 mana to put 2/2/2s into play isn't that impressive, the fact that those wolves can die, and if you play a second Garrett Huntsman, or if you play some kind of Garrett tribal deck or anything like that, you can actually put counters onto those ones, and those other Planeswalkers have very powerful ultimates. Not saying that this one doesn't, but that they definitely have very powerful minus abilities that these wolves can essentially turbo out depending on how you build around even just this Planeswalker in particular, or around like that kind of archetype. All in all, I think he's very powerful. He's going to be very good. He's definitely going to be seeing some sort of standard play, whether it's going to be when Throne drops and in the heat of rotation, or maybe even after the next set in the Throne block. We'll see. He'll see probably more play, but definitely a very powerful Planeswalker, and another one to kind of look out for into the future. The next Planeswalker, the one that we actually got spoiled yesterday, Oko, Thief of Crowns. And there was a lot of like controversy and just people talking about this card in particular because of the +2 ability to create a food token. Now, we have no idea what the heck food tokens did at this point, so it's just kind of, well, what can it mean? What's going on? What is it? For the purposes of this card and of all the other cards that make food tokens, this card, when it creates a food token, it creates an artifact that has pay 2, tap, sacrifice it, you gain 3 life. Not very powerful, but still, it's a 3 mana Planeswalker that ends up going to either 5 or 6 loyalty to start, and has a kind of weird like minus ability, but can also be pretty good depending on how you build around it. Not sure how good it's going to be in standard, but definitely in some of the older formats, this card is going to be pretty good. The +1 is kind of interesting, where you can target an artifact that either you control or your opponent controls, and turn it into a creature that becomes a 3/3 and loses all abilities. So this is like a pseudo kind of like removal spell. Like, you could probably target like one of your opponent's creatures that like has just a lord effect or something like that, or has like death touch, whatever, and like you just turn into a 3/3, and while it in turn that means that it can pressure your Planeswalker. Definitely, if you're using it on one of your opponent's creatures or one of your opponent's artifacts, maybe to remove it by turning it into a creature, definitely can be a good enough swing. And then of course, like the floor, you just target one of your random like rocks or something like that, or anything like that, to just make into a creature and to put bodies into play. And the -5, which I was kind of alluding to just a minute ago, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control, and target creature and opponent controls with power 3 or less. So there's like a world where like you could turn their thing into a 3/3, and then you could like minus to then like give them an artifact or a creature that you have that like has a downside. Like there's some really old creatures that like say that you can't cast creature spells, or that you can't play lands, or things like that. So then that could be a way, obviously not in standard, but in some of those older formats that I was they're talking about, that where this card could, in theory, like you could take your opponent's creature and then you give them something, and then it has just a negative effect on them, while obviously you have the better benefit of the two, because you at least have a 3/3 while they just have this thing that's probably going to send into play, causing them to not be able to do the things that they want to do. So that's kind of a cool thing, a weird card for sure, and of course one of the first shapeshifter planeswalker, if that means anything to anybody. So, and important to note too, on these last two, on Garak and Oko, they don't have static abilities like planeswalkers did uh, in War of the Spark, where Chandra had a static ability, the 6 mana Chandra Mythic from M20, that just said it couldn't be countered. So kind of interesting that they entered this like design space of that, but then kind of went in a different direction with Throne. So that's kind of neat. Enough about that. Some of the other like kind of interesting cards and things that we've learned from this set. We figured out the mechanic, or this new mechanic, basically a sorcery or an instant spell being stapled onto like these creatures. So with Love Struck Beast, you can pay 1 green from your hand to create a 1/1, and then you exile this card, and then you can cast the creature half of it later. So essentially, if you have like 4 mana, you can play Heart's Desire, which is the storybook part of, or the sorcery part of this creature. You can then exile this creature, and then you can pay the 3 to then cast it. Or you could decide that you just want to play the creature half of it and just play as a 3 mana 5/5, but then you have no chance of casting the sorcery part of it until it ends up back in your hand in some sort of way. So that's kind of interesting, and a weird like design take on like creature cards, giving them a little bit more utility. It's kind of like what I'd imagine cycling like was first introduced on like a card, where like if it's just not good as a creature or it's not good as a sorcery, then you could just cycle it away. And in these cards' case, like if you don't have a 1/1 creature in play, you can play this card to make the 1/1 creature and then play this card. Or if you have a 1/1 in play, you don't have to pay the green to make a 1/1. You can just play it from your hand as a creature, and it gives you additional value for essentially being able and willing to wait longer to play them, because then you get to cast essentially 2 spells with 1 card, which is really interesting. And kind of like even going back to the aftermath mechanic of Amonkhet block, where you had to cast a spell from your hand, and then when it was in the graveyard, you cast the other half of it. So kind of neat, really cool. Hopefully we see some more cards like this. Obviously we'll see more cards like this, but probably some really powerful cards. Like I could see this mechanic being busted. I could also see it just being super underwhelming. So far there's been a few cards that have been pretty good, but we'll see what happens. Going through, we got another 1 mana dork, Gilded Goose, that uses food tokens to create mana of any color, and then can even make food tokens on its own, so that's pretty cool. Our first like mythic like legendary creature, this one I thought was pretty cool. Rankle, Master of Pranks, which is a 4 mana 3/3 flying haster. It deals combat damage to a player. Choose any number. So basically, what this card is saying, that when you choose any number, you choose any number of these once. So you can choose all 3. You can make each player discard a card, lose a life and draw a card, or sacrifice a creature, or you can just have them do one of those, or any combination of 2 of those things, or like I said, all 3, is essentially what this card is saying. You can't just make your choose each player draws a card and loses a life, 20 some odd times to then kill your opponent. Essentially, that's not how that works. You get to choose any number of these once. So really cool card, really sweet. Wouldn't be surprised if it's all play in standard, especially again with a smaller card pool and everything, with rotation happening when this set comes out. So that'll be pretty sweet. What else? What else? Planeswalkers were cool. We had some new legendaries. Real quick, Chulin, Teller of Tales, was spoiled like forever ago, and Arcane Signet, essentially like with Brawl being like the big thing that was coming back when this set was released. So like here's Chulin, Teller of Tales, and then up here is Sir Gwen, Hero of the Ashvale, Alila, Artful Provocator, and Corvold, Fey-Cursed King are going to be the pre-con brawl decks for Throne of Eldraine. And as of right now, the recording of this video, you're able to actually play these pre-constructed decks on Arena and get rewards from them, and also just kind of see like some of the cards that are going to be in Throne. I highly recommend playing in that event because it is a lot of fun. Literally play all the commanders except for Sir Gwen, because I think playing a beatdown deck is awful when you have cards like Flying Death Touch Lifelink and you have a Jund commander of sorts that just like gets way bigger than the things that you're slapping equipment onto. And then the Bant one for just complete like shenanigans and stuff like that. So much fun. I want to stream the event because I just have a blast playing it. There's also some other like night tribal, essentially like being a thing or like being pushed in this set with cards like Knight's Charge and the other mythic Circle of Loyalty that costs less for each knight you control, is an anthem, and whenever you cast a legendary spell, it makes a 2/2, and then this thing can make a 2/2 itself for 4 mana and then tapping it. And the last card that I really wanted to like talk about, just because I can find it, it's really neat, and I'm just like a big fan of just dirtledness, but Midnight Clock, basically being a 3 mana rock, a blue artifact, can tap to add a blue. You can pay 3 to put an hour counter on it, and at the beginning of your upkeep you put an hour counter on it. When it gets its 12th hour counter put on it, you shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, draw 7, and then exile it. So I think this card is sweet because the putting an hour counter on it isn't a tap ability. It's a early like ramp spell. Like it's an early rock that you can play, and then even if you just never put a mana investment into it, which obviously you'd want to at some point, but it'll essentially just tick up itself. And with the different proliferate mechanics that we got from War of the Spark, it is in theory a way that you could just get like a cheap like draw 7 and recycle your deck. And probably something that if we see a dirtily like control deck back in the format, like this could be something that they could abuse by like locking your opponent out with Narset or something like that. I guess it's not for each player, but still something that like Narset could use to like find it, tutor it up, play it, and then just recycle the cards that you were playing instead of having to play cards like Devious Cover Up and things like that. And yeah, so far that's like all the, to me, the noteworthy spoilers. There's a lot of like these common and uncommon cards that do some really sweet things, but really I think those were kind of like the big cards that I was really worried about and wanted to hit on while they're still new and while we're still waiting on spoilers. So that's going to be it for this video. I'm super excited for this set, and I'm going to keep putting out videos just going over some of the spoilers and stuff like that, the ones that I think are really cool. If you want to see the spoilers in real time or figure out if there's any new ones, I will post the link to Scryfall, which is the website that I used today for this video, and I'm going to be using for future videos of Throne of Eldraine. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and comment down below what card you're excited for, or cards that you want to see in this set, or what you want to even see from some of the mechanics that are in this set. And make sure to subscribe so you can catch more videos like this, catching up on the spoilers. I'm going to be doing deck techs, having them come out throughout the rest of this week and through the weekend as well, just to get some content out there. I was kind of lazy this week. with a bunch of stuff going on, but we're going to be getting them out there. And yeah, that's going to be it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.